Welcome to the Overwhelm is Optional podcast, where each week we find ways to gently rebel against the nonsense that overwhelm and exhaustion are just the price you pay to have the life you want. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Overwhelm is Optional podcast, because when you make overwhelm optional for you, wow, your life gets so much better. Oh, goodness me. And this is particularly extra relevant with today's slightly quirky subject, which is all about what making butternut squash soup has to do with the gentle rebellion and you finding your way to live, your easier, more joyful, more expansive, just so much nicer way to live. So it's all about you and butternut squash soup. Now we've got loads of new listeners, which I'm so excited about. So welcome wherever you are in the world. If you want to drop me a line and let me know about yourself, I love hearing from you. You can just email me if you want at heidi@heidimarke.co.uk, or you could follow me on Instagram and message me over there if you want to, or LinkedIn, all the places. Anyway, I love to hear from you and know your story, what you're getting out of the podcast, what you loved, what you want more of, etc. And also, if anybody wants to leave a review, that would be really, really nice. I haven't really pushed that because I find it quite irritating, I suppose. And it's not though, is it? We're just looking after each other and saying, yeah, I love that. So I've started to leave more reviews for books and things just because it's nice to pay that forward. Anyway, if you feel like leaving a lovely review, it would be so much appreciated, because it helps other people find this podcast, which is obviously really important to me and my mission, which is to get those of us who need to be gently rebelling against the nonsense that to have the life we've worked so damn hard for, i.e. well paid, fulfilling work, without compromising our integrity, our sanity, our health, our relationships, our ability to switch off and laugh easily, to be present with those we love, anyway, I could go on and on. It's joyful on the other side of overwhelm. So welcome to all the fantastic new people who are here with us today, and also to my people who are always here. I appreciate you. I love you. I am your biggest cheerleader. Thank you for being here. Okay, so this week's episode, what has making butternut squash soup got to do with the gentle rebellion? Well, so yesterday I just popped a butternut squash I found in the cupboard, because there were two of them, which is quite a lot of butternut squash really. So I thought I'll just pop one in the Rayburn, because we have a wood-fired Rayburn, and at this time of year it's on, and unless I've got logs in the oven, because now I'm just going off the sidetrack, but that's all right. So I put the logs in the oven because then they get even less moisture. So we have really well seasoned logs, and you get more bang for your buck with wood if the drier it is. So just if there's space in the oven, then I cook my logs, because it doesn't take energy. I guess it must take some. Anyway, forget about that. It works super well. Anyway, so I was cooking logs and dinner and a butternut squash, and I just thought, I'll make it for lunch. And then I haven't made it for lunch because I'm looking at it right now over there, and it's half peeled because I've got super excited about the topic, and now I want to record my podcast, which means I don't know what happens to my lunch, but it's all fine. It'll stop me rambling for hours, won't it? Or not. Anyway, I was cutting this butternut squash and I got this huge inspiration. Do you get those? I love those. I get them a lot. I'm very, very fortunate. But then I do pay attention to them and value them and do something with them, which we get what we focus on, right? So then I get more of them. Anyway, so I'm peeling the butternut squash, and I just looked at it and the peel is coming off already. It's like the difference between stripping wallpaper, which is put on with that weird glue that is like concrete glue, and where it's already peeling itself off, falling off you, and a whole delicious sheet of wallpaper comes off in one go. Like, this butternut squash was so easy to peel, whereas normally, if it's not cooked, oh my goodness, it can be quite tricky. Often my partner will say, do you want me to do that for you? Just because I can be a bit clumsy. My thumb is still recovering from slicing it just after Christmas. Anyway, peeling a cooked butternut squash versus an uncooked butternut squash is an enormous difference. One is super easy, one is quite tricky. I know making butternut squash isn't your life. It's not, well, unless you're a butternut squash chef, in which case, brilliant. Share all your recipes with us. Anyway, but how we do things matter. What's that saying? Who says that thing about how you do one thing is how you do everything? I'm not quite sure I agree with that. But anyway, because I think we can be quite chameleon-like, can't we? Different in different areas where it depends where our blind spots are. But anyway, I probably got the quote wrong anyway. Apologies. Anyway, my point is, here's my inspiration. So how can we do things more easily? That's it. That is the gentle rebellion, isn't it? We get out of overwhelm because overwhelm blocks. I've just realised this is really funny because I'm videoing myself recording this episode so that I can use it. I don't know if I'll put it on YouTube, but I might use bits of it so to promote the podcast. And I'm waving my hands about. And you can see how excited I get and how it's like a full body thing for me recording this podcast. It's just making me laugh because it probably looks ridiculous, but I'm not looking at the camera. Anyway, back to butternut squash. So we want to do things in the easiest way. We want to find your way because overwhelm blocks that. So we remove the overwhelm, start tuning into the body and the heart and nourishing the mind so we can keep it clear whenever possible. Or it's not going to stay clear. That's not how minds work. They're designed to get clogged up so that you notice what's going on in your environment. But to make a decision, to act, we need to clear the mind first. We need to get out of overwhelm. I would argue we need to. You get to decide that. So the whole thing is overwhelm is Overwhelm is optional. I can teach you if you want me to, and coach you through a tried and tested process of making overwhelm optional for you. What you decide to do with that, how committed you decide to take all those skills forward. That's a terrible sentence, but you can see what I'm trying to say. How committed you are to embedding that process is entirely up to you. I can make overwhelm optional for you, but you have to decide you want it. So this episode is about an aspect of the gentle rebellion which is portrayed in that experience of peeling a butternut squash. So I would put other things in an oven to cook them. For example, when I have grown spaghetti squash, which are a lot of faff, to be fair, because like you're going to you do the thing of planting a whole packet of seeds and only one plant survives, and then it only produces 1 or 2 squash. And then, although I think they're brilliant because if you bake them in the oven and you scrape out the middle, it's like vegetable noodles. But actually, if you think about it, that's a crazy way to get noodles, which are just like the what do you call it? The boat or whatever, the platform for pouring on the best bit of the meal. But where was I going? So I know that the only way or the best way to cook spaghetti squash is to just bake it in an oven. But the thing is, spaghetti squashes come at the wrong time of year for baking in the oven in this house. So actually the whole thing's just, I'm not growing spaghetti squash anymore. Sorry to those who are fans of spaghetti squash. It's just too much hard work. I'm going to pick easier things to grow, more delicious things to grow, things that are harder to get hold of or more expensive in the shops, or things that are fun to grow. Like, I'm so excited, Potato Day is coming up again. The 18th of February is my closest potato day, and I'm just so excited. I get so excited about, I've only been once, but it was on my list, and I went last year, and if you caught that episode, I said to my son on the way there, I want some purple potatoes. And he said, I don't think that's how it works. You can't just show up and expect them to have purple potatoes. To which my partner said, you obviously don't know your mother. And I walked into the potato day. If you don't know, why would you? Potato days, if you're lucky enough to have one with you, are where you can buy seed potatoes individually. And there is a place near me in Somerset that does seed potatoes, heritage potatoes. So I think there's going to be like 70 different varieties, and if you bought them online you'd have to buy a kilo or half kilo or something, and I just want a few. I don't want loads of potatoes, and I also want the super extraordinary ones. And last year I walked in very excited, went straight to look for some purple potatoes because I decided I had a picture in my mind, and I found the ones that looked like the picture in my mind, and not only were they purple, but they were called Heidi. Yes, how cool is that? So this year's Potato Day is on February 18th. I'm super excited, and I will be looking for more purple ones, pink ones, blue ones, anything that looks fun. I'm going to grow fewer this year. I did get too excited last year. I had too many plants in too small a space, and the main crop didn't do very well because we had about 2 to 3 weeks here in Wiltshire of no rain, and I ran out of water. So anyway, if you're into growing stuff, I'm a big gardener and I get very excited, especially about potatoes, because when you dig for them, it's like finding gold. It's like finding treasure. I just find it very exciting. Anyway, I digress, because that's what I do. I get excited because life is fun. By the way, please excuse dog noises because I'm in the kitchen, and Tegwin, my ancient border collie, has just gone to have an enormous drink of water, which may or may not get edited out by Buzzsprout's incredible magic mastering, where they make the audio even better. So that's what's going on. I'm not actually surrounded by, I don't know what else it would sound like. Anyway, never mind. Okay, good news. The butternut squash with some ginger and chicken stock is now simmering away on the Rayburn, so that when I finish this, I have a nourishing lunch. Now, why did I do that? Because I matter. Because it's important to me that I have nourishing lunch. And while I can get super excited about my work, it's also really important that I am nourished. And this is the whole thing, isn't it? The mind is so good at being distracted. And then we forget, at least I know I can, forget to look after the body. And that's what leads to that perpetual cycle of surfing the verge of burnout, where we just don't quite have the energy to unwind. We don't have an ability to switch off. We're not really recovering properly between our days, whether they're exciting or whether they've reached a stage of dreary, weary struggle, or a kind of a cycling, because it can, if you have, or you had well-paid, fulfilling, meaningful work, and then it goes through a cycle of being just too much, it doesn't mean it's never like that, does it? It kind of goes up and down, and that's what I think one of the many things that keeps us trapped in this cycle is that because we're so overwhelmed but don't realize it, we keep hoping because there's enough of a glimmer. You know, we compare ourselves to others or to other jobs or other business opportunities and think, yeah, but actually what I have is quite good and I worked really hard to be here. And it's that, isn't it? It's that I can't see a better way, so therefore I'm just going to put up. And then we feel better because we think, well, I've made a good decision. And then actually we're too overwhelmed to see there's an easier way, like the butternut squash, like cooking things in a different way that's easier. So I'm going to ask you this question. I've got a couple of questions for you to mull on this week. The first one is, what other things did it take you a while? So this is, I suppose, this question's to me. What other things did it take me a while? I'm going to share any more I can think of to find out a more easy way to do things. So are there other things? So I've got my butternut squash one just because it's not important. It's easier to think of things that you don't berate yourself with. So here's another one for you. When I got my tripod, which has got to be about 4 years ago, when I recorded my first online course, I bought a tripod to put my phone in, and it came with a remote control, which I immediately left in the box because I thought it would be too overwhelming and difficult to work out how to use it because it's a tech thing. And then the other day I went to a networking meeting and the woman there just pressed this button and it took the photo, and I thought, for goodness sake, Heidi, I bet it's super easy. So I came home, put a battery in the little thing, remote thing, and it's so easy. So that's another example, isn't it, of something that I could have known about ages ago, but well, to start with, I just forgot. And secondly, moving from teaching to then, actually the first thing I did was teach yoga for a bit, and then all online, where these kind of skills are necessary and really useful, There's so many to learn. There's so much to learn. And I decided not to worry about that one. And I'm quite happy with that, but I'm laughing now because it's so easy. So can you think of any other things like that? Can you think of things for you that you didn't know that you do know now? And then the second question, which I think would be nice if you choose to accept this slightly more challenging question this week, is to think about things that are easier for you but not easier for others. So they take more courage. So I was thinking this morning when I went back to bed with my cup of tea, how much that's just normal for me. The idea of waking up, getting out of bed and going straight into my day physically out of bed, it's just not for me. I absolutely love a slow start, a very focused start where I'll go back to bed with a cup of tea and wake up slowly, because I'm not one of those people who wakes up in a very ta-da, good morning, I'm here. I'm ridiculous. I mean, my partner pretty much laughs gently at me every morning because I'm like this small squirrel coming out of hibernation going, why is there so much light in the kitchen? And there's not that much light in the kitchen. I'm just not actually awake yet. And he's just learnt very quickly. I remember the worst thing he did. Poor, lovely, lovely man. One day when must have been the first birthday I had after he moved in with me. This is years ago. And he decided to wake me up with my birthday presents, and I was furious. It took me hours to recover because I was in this really deep sleep, and I'd just been, even though it was a nice surprise, I just cannot be woken up in that way. I don't know what it's to do with. I don't really care. I mean, one of the things I know is that having had babies is that I'm still that experience of the horror of not being able to sleep for years, not having a really good night's sleep, of a 4 hour sleep being, something to celebrate, is that, quite frankly, I love my sleep and I love not being disturbed, and I don't want to be disturbed. It's not good for you, is it, to be woken up in the wrong part of your sleep cycle? So no, I'm justifying it now. There's no need. This is me. What about you? What do you need? What makes life better and easier for you? But maybe other people would tell you the opposite. And this is really important because it's very, very easy, isn't it, to look at what somebody else does and say, oh, well, that's how I should do it, because that is the easier way. And I think it's really helpful to get away from the idea there is one right solution. And this is one of the things with what I teach, is I'm not teaching one right solution. I'm teaching you how to find yours. It's about you. Only you know, but that can be hidden from us because we all have blind spots. Of course we do. That's just the way things are. That's part of uncovering your adventure. So I was thinking this morning about myself several years ago. I don't have a kind of date in mind, like a specific rooted time. I expect it was 2010, possibly. I don't really know. And I was thinking about the time so I trained to be a maths teacher in 2009 to 2010. And I'm pretty sure that I started my blog in 2010, but I could be wrong. I've no idea because I deleted my maths teacher blog along with trying to delete everything about being a maths teacher because I felt utterly ashamed of how I left the profession, because I crashed and burnt, and it was just very painful, going from being very, very confident and teaching teachers, coaching senior leaders, being able to hold a group of year 11s in the palm of my hand and teach them maths as if it was a story they wanted to know the end to, and then going from that to not being able to get any of them to even sit down and not swear at me, to crying in front of them, in front of even year 8s who are 12-year-olds. I mean, it's tragic. It's tragic what I allowed happen to me, and it's tragic what we do to each other within the workplace. Now, the reason I can share that now without tears, without upset, is because I've gently, and often not gently at the beginning, faced it. But I realised this morning when I was really thinking back that sometimes there's still shame to do with that. So to me, that's just that revisiting. So if we think of, it's very easy to think of life as this linear progression. It's the way we're taught history, isn't it? That we as humans are just getting more intelligent, better at everything. Whereas actually it looks like that's probably not true. And there's some other exciting stuff going on. There's a thing on Netflix, isn't there? I can't remember what it's called. Ancient Apocalypse. And the suggestion is that actually there's archaeological evidence that there's been, and I think we know this really, don't we, that there's been rises and falls of civilization, and there's no linear pattern. I don't know. But if we think of a spiral instead, which is what we do in Zen, so each time my mind wanders back to when I was a teacher and pulls something out and lets go of some more shame and celebrates more about myself, that's part of that journey of awareness, which is really helpful to me. So this morning I was thinking, particularly early on in my career, and I was thinking of, well, I remember one of the senior team saying to me, and other teachers saying to me, it gets easier. So that they always tell you your training year is hell. And it is. I mean, it's bizarre. And it's unnecessarily bizarre. But anyway, and you are really taught in that year to put your own needs last, to not expect to sleep, to not always have time to go to the toilet or eat. So there's some very basic self-care things that are expected to be overridden. Now, there's a difference between self-discipline and commitment to your work and what is actually leading to abuse of yourself by not taking care of yourself. And that line, I don't know what it's like now because I have nothing to do with the education industry. I do have to do with the education industry because I'm in the education industry because I have courses and I teach. But the education system, I have nothing to do with. I'm just not interested. It's not my thing, and I'm happy about that. So for me, that's what I learnt to do, was that it was a temporary thing. So if I pushed myself really hard, then got my qualification, then got a job, everything would be okay. And then I spoke to some other teachers and they said, yeah, the second year is really hard as well. So I was like, okay. And then they promised me it would get easier. Well, in my second year, I'm pretty sure it didn't start to get easier. And I'm pretty sure that's when I started my blog. And my second blog post was called, I love my job, but it's killing me. And I was thinking about that and thinking, oh my goodness, Heidi, if your job was killing you, why would you go to work? And yet we do, don't we? Many of us, hardworking professionals, we do. We damage ourselves every day for the purpose of work for many, many reasons. So you can say, well, I need the money. I've worked really hard for this. So there's the whole sunk cost fallacy that it's already cost you a lot to get there. You've sacrificed a lot. So therefore I'll hang on. There's lots of, but I would say they're the more external reasons. I actually think if it's more helpful to look at the how we're doing it. So you can decide, well, for now, it's easier for me to stay in this position because it provides financial security and it has a career structure. I have sick pay, etc. And I've worked really hard for it and I would really like to make it work. And that's what I did for a long, long time. But what I wasn't looking at was what was actually going on a deeper level. So I would argue that the difference between me and teachers who didn't burn out, there'd be lots of reasons, but one of them would be I, for some reason, thought it was okay. I could somehow rationalize the destroying of my health and sanity, the damaging of my relationships, in a way that others couldn't. So they would find other ways of dealing with it. So within a workplace, you've got different reactions to stress and overwork, haven't you? You've got the people who just do less. And now I think they've got a term, quiet quitters. I haven't really looked into that. But for me, for somebody like me who doesn't like to disappoint others, who believes in having meaningful, fulfilling work, I like to work with integrity. Integrity is really, really important to me. So that kind of thing just didn't work for me. That passing things on to other people, that doing a less good job. Now, the problem with that, now you could say that's perfectionism, but it wasn't perfectionism. How do I know? Because I was really, really good at working out what needed to be done and what I could let go of. Really good at it. Why? Well, because I'd spent the previous decade being a single working mum. And in that situation, you have to work out, you can't do everything. So what's most important? And I was very, very good at that. But I was also, I think, better at looking after myself as a single working mum, maybe because I knew that there was only me. So I couldn't be ill. Everything fell to pieces if I couldn't earn money, couldn't be well, couldn't cook, couldn't drive them where they, couldn't look after them. It's too important. Whereas something happened when I went into a career where suddenly that went. Now, I'm not sure why, and I'm still, I don't know. I don't even think I'm even actively thinking about it, because it's not relevant. It's not relevant to this episode. What is relevant to this episode is this whole idea that we can look back and with hindsight say, well, there was an easier way for you to do that. So I can look back and I can say, there's many things I could have done. And I can go all the way back to the fact that I damn well knew that teaching would probably result in me burning out or struggling with burnout. Why? Because I'd been a teaching assistant in many different roles in several schools. I had close friends who taught. My partner was an ex-teacher. I knew, and yet I still chose to go in. So with hindsight, I could say, well, you made the wrong decision. And then I could berate myself for that. So what was my alternative? Well, at the time, I was training in coaching, but other things happened at that time and I just couldn't do it. I didn't have the courage. The economy collapsed. Both my children left home at the same time because of the educational choices. There were lots of shifts and changes, and I didn't surf through that storm in a way that enabled me to come out of it feeling courageous enough to properly. I set up my business and I had people who I was going to coach for free, and I had the training in place. I had everything in place, and then I fell into a hole. And that's just, so I made the decision to go into teaching kind of out of fear. It was easier to do that. It felt easier to do that because it had a very clear pathway. I would need to do more training, more exams, more studying, but I was already in that, having just finished my degree. It took me 20 years or whatever to get my degree, and I just finished my degree. I'd done really well, and it was just more of that. It was easier. It was an easier lane, whereas setting up on my own as a coach people didn't do that, so it was harder. It would have taken more courage, and at the time I lacked the courage. Now I could look back and say, well, actually there was plenty of support for you to sort that out, but I just wasn't used to that. I was used to doing everything very much on my own and pushing through as a single mum. So I was a different person then than I am now. So going back with hindsight and saying I could have done things in a different way, of course I could. But where's the adventure in that? If we go through life saying, well, you could have done it this way, you could have done that, you could have done that. I lacked the awareness. I can see now what I couldn't see then. But that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is, because I couldn't see then what I can see now, that tells me that awareness matters. That the most powerful thing we can do is to become more self-aware. Because then we can hold that mirror up to ourselves, or we can ask other people. Like, the beauty of finding a really good coach is they will hold that mirror up to you in a way that is firm but gentle enough for you to look in that mirror and say, oh, okay, ta-da, like my butternut squash inspiration this morning. This is so much easier. This is so much easier. This is who I am. No wonder I can't do things like that person, because I'm not that person. It's that beautiful awareness, self-awareness, and more acceptance and love. From there, we can get more out of our life. We can be much lovelier to be around, and we can do the things we long to do. It's just It's easier. We need to know ourselves. So the question for you is, for this week, where are you doing things the hard way? Where are your blind spots? What is overwhelm? Where's your overwhelm? I can't, it's a stupid question to say, what's your overwhelm hiding from you? Because if you knew that, the question is, the clue with overwhelm is if you look at where you're most overwhelmed in your life, that's where there's the most opportunity, because the overwhelm is pointing to, this area of my life, I can't see the wood for the trees. I have no idea what I should be doing. That's really hard. And you can kind of feel it in your body if you want. If you go to do something and you just get this dread and this sinking feeling, then you know there's an easier way to do that. And I really don't believe in this pushing on through. This is really important. So this is what we're taught to do, isn't it? Push on through. It'll be worth it. No, it won't. There's no need to push. Why would we push against ourselves? We damage ourselves on the way when we squish ourselves into a life not meant for us, when we do things in a way not meant for us. So it's not the life. It's easy to look at our life and go, well, I picked the wrong career. I picked the wrong workplace. I picked the wrong colleagues. I did that wrong. No. That's just mean. You're being really mean. Don't be mean to yourself. How about we turn it around and say, well, the way I did that was harder than it needed to be. That's all. What if we can just be kinder to ourselves and say, what is there anywhere in my life? So it's easier to look back and say, is there anywhere in my life where I could have done things easier, in a more easier way? And then if that's true, which I'm pretty sure it must be for all of us, because we're all just on an adventure learning, that means there must be easier ways to do things now. It just makes sense, right? And then another easier way in, without doing the looking back with hindsight and utter shame and humiliation and berating ourselves, because seriously, we weren't born able to walk and talk. Why are we so hard on ourselves? I wasn't born knowing what the easier way to make butternut squash soup was. Actually, nobody told me, and I didn't actively seek it, so I don't know. And I didn't know how easy it was to set up my tripod. You can laugh. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with admitting something that would be really simple and easy to some people. Like, I'm pretty sure my grown-up children don't listen to my podcast, but if they were listening, they just go, oh, for goodness sake, because that's what adult children do, and I'm okay with that. Yes, maybe I should have opened the box properly of the tripod and it would have saved me a lot of hassle. Who cares? I have it now. It's funny. I'm comfortable with admitting to that kind of slight silliness and incompetence because it's human. Because why are we so hard on ourselves? We're so hard on ourselves because we don't want to look foolish. We don't want to let other people down. We want to be taken seriously. And as professionals, it's particularly difficult because we do have a professional position where we need to be treated with respect, where we need to have some authority. Now, I'm not an authority on either butternut squash soup or how to use tech, even the simplest of tech, clearly. Although I'd be an excellent person to ask about how to avoid all of this overwhelm in tech as an online entrepreneur, because I've been there and I can just look at it now and go, you could just miss out all of this rubbish and make it quicker and easier. But what I do and what I am an authority and an expert in is overwhelm, is in how to clear it, how to make it optional for you so you can see the easier ways, not so you make fewer mistakes. This is important. We think we make mistakes and it's terrible. We can't talk about them. That's why I talk about my mistakes in inverted commas. They're not mistakes, are they? They're just detours on your adventure. And by looking back at them, and not for ages, I think it's really important. There's a lot of, you have to look back and you have to dig deep and you have to find everything that's wrong. And no, you don't. Just look, notice the patterns, what keeps coming up for you. As soon as you get awareness of it, it releases, it gives you insight. Awareness and insight into your own life is gold, because only you can live your life. Only you can know how to live your life. That's it, really. Overwhelm is optional. When you make it optional for you, that's what you get. All of that gold, all of that easier way, all of that, being able to live without overwhelm, which is just so much better, obviously, because who doesn't want a clear mind? Who doesn't want to be able to connect to their heart and say, yeah, do you know what? I know that logically makes sense, but this is what I feel. This is what I really want to do. This is what energizes and lights me up. Being able to connect to your heart, being able to feel it in your bones, being able to listen to your body like the old friend it indeed is, and take it seriously when it's telling you, from things like I need a drink to I need to move, I need to rest, I need to not eat that food that really didn't agree with me, all sorts of things, to I feel it in my bones, I feel it in my gut. You know, there's lots, isn't there, from intuition to health, all sorts of exciting, useful information in your body that we are taught to deny and push on through. No, let's forget the pushing on through. Let's gently rebel against that nonsense. So, what's next for you? Well, I've given you a couple of questions and lots of things to think about this week. So if you're one of the new people to the podcast, welcome, welcome, welcome. Or even if you've been hanging around for ages, I just want to give a quick update on what's going on in my world of what I can offer you, because I'm very excited. Well, for two things, I'm very excited about a new thing, and secondly, I am looking at all my offerings and clarifying them, because I think it's really important. I think it's easy to think, well, you know how you can receive support from me, but if I don't make it clear, how do you know? So clarity and transparency are really important. So I am going to update all my offerings on my website, put all the prices back up, because in my recent, do you like my new website, by the way? But it's got bits missing. So I'm in that's all, it's all happening. Anyway, this is how I can support you in gently rebelling so that you can live your life your way. Binge listen to this podcast. It has so much on it. Listen to the guests. Listen to the episodes where I just teach, like a mini workshop. Just keep listening. Absorb. Enjoy. Read my book. If you don't want to buy it, you can borrow it on Kindle Unlimited, or buy it. It's not that expensive. Keep it by your bed. It's designed to be, you could skim read it in half an hour, and then you can go back and absorb one sentence a day, or even one sentence a month, and the sentences are rich. You could keep them in your heart and feel better every day. Then I've also got a blog, actually. You can read my blog. I intermittently blog, whereas my podcast comes out every Wednesday. Blogging comes and goes, but there's lots on my blog. You can also buy one of my tiny, huge, life-changing courses. So they're low-cost courses if you want to do a little DIY thing for yourself and get started with your gentle rebellion. And then you can, of course, work with me either one-to-one or in my group program, Get Your Life Back, which will be opening its doors again, probably late springish. I haven't set an actual date yet. So if you're interested in that, please do get in touch, because it's easier to decide when to open the doors if people have expressed an interest and I can get the right group together. It's a really nice way to do it. If you're looking for one-to-one coaching, get in touch. Just email me, message me, or go straight to my website, click on the Book a Curiosity call, and let's chat without any obligation at all, and see if that's something you might want to do either now or later in the year. And then lastly, the thing I'm super excited about is I really want to create a membership, a low-cost membership, where the community is not in a Facebook group. This is really important to me, and I know to you, because a lot of us just don't want to be on Facebook for lots of reasons, and reducing social media overwhelm is obviously really important. So that's what's coming up. I haven't pulled it all together yet. That's one of the things that I'm planning on working on tomorrow. So look out for that, particularly as you can, it's pay monthly in advance, but you can join and leave whenever you want. But the founder member, as with most memberships, will be a cheaper price that you can lock in. So it's worth hanging around for that. Join my mailing list. I think that's everything. yeah, that's it. So that's how you can work with me. That's what I'm offering. Lots of stuff for free, lots of stuff low cost, and then one-to-one bespoke coaching. Woohoo! Anyway, it's lovely to have you here. I'm wishing you an unexpectedly lovely week, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do take a little moment of your time to share it, like it, etc., to help other people find it. And if you'd like to know more about my work, please go to www.heidimarke.co.uk.